Alrighty, we're going to get started here, Jim.
Okay.
And, welcome everybody to another amazing webinar put on by PortalToAscension. And we are here live at the Miracle Hot Springs Resort and Spa and doing the Earthshift Conference with Julian, Neil, myself, and many others, amazing people, Dr. Dream, and many other headliners. So it's great to be here and in this energy, and now to be with Jim on the air and through this webinar is also great. So thank you, Jim, for joining us. And I just want to start off a little bit with just giving people a little bit of background on who you are for the participants that are not aware. Jim Self is the co-founder of Mastering Alchemy and an international speaker and author. Jim Self has been leading seminars and teaching healing, clairvoyance, and personal energy management courses since 1980. Since childhood, he has retained a conscious awareness and ability to recall his experiences within the sleep state. Over the last 12 years, this awareness has expanded into relationships with the archangels, ascended masters, and the teachers of light. The tools and information presented in the Mastering Alchemy programs is a co-creation of these relationships. And that's what we're going to be diving into today. Also, Jim also walks well with the third dimension, as most of us have to do these days, even though we like to be in the fourth and fifth and higher. At the age of 26, he was elected to his first of 2 terms to the San Jose, California City Council, and later became vice mayor. Before completing his second term, he was asked by President Jimmy Carter to be an advisor and the director of government of operations of the Department of Energy. Since then, Jim has successfully built and sold 2 corporations and is the founder and current board chairman of a third. He lives a road bike long distance and drinks green smoothies like we love. Love that part. And just a little bit so people know your web domain so people can check it out, masteringalchemy.com. What is Mastering Alchemy? I'm going to ask you that in a minute. How does it relate to your ascension process? And how can these tools help you create your life, and what we're going to get into today. My name, again, is Jonah Bolt from Starseed Radio and also Starseed Society. I work a lot with Neil and PortalToAscension again for putting this together. So if anyone does have any questions, please use the Zoom chat box. And once there's a break or a pause, I'll go in and ask Jim a question, and Jim will respond that way. So just use the chat box. And with that, Jim, thank you again so much for joining us. And if you would start off with your personal journey. When did you first get introduced to alchemy? Did you have an awakening? Were you a child? When did this first begin for you?
Sure. Thanks, Joe, for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Really, it's an interesting journey that all of us are on, and you come into the body with a lot of different tools and skills and abilities and recollections and non-recollections to a great extent. And in my reality, I came in actually fairly turned on, but I didn't know what that meant as I grew up. And and it was a little distracting. No, actually, it was a lot distracting. And it's the same thing for a lot of people. You have these skills, clairvoyance, where you see something, you kind of know what you're seeing, and then you, unfortunately, many times open your mouth about what you're seeing. And what you're saying and what you're seeing isn't really what everybody else wants you to be seeing, even though pretty much you're completely accurate about what you're saying. So I would open my mouth and say things about different people, and some of those things I would say, it was either embarrassing or inappropriate according to the adults. And so most people at that point start to shut it down. They begin to back away from you getting scolded, punished for something that you are aware of, and you start to get told, don't, and stop, and no, and we don't do it this way. In my reality, I think I stopped saying a lot of the things that I would see or feel or hear, those 3 aspects of clairsentience, clairaudience, and clairvoyance, but I didn't turn it off. And that's one of the differences, I think, in my experiences. I watch lots of others, they turn it off, or they ignored it. It's a better answer. You don't turn it off. It doesn't go away. You just ignore it or kind of turn your back to it. And when you do that, you begin to, I watch people, they begin to shut down. They stop being who they are. So in my reality, I was constantly aware of it, but I didn't say things. The other part of my growing up is, it was, I'm going to say now, I couldn't say it then, it was boring, because there were lots of things that I was aware of nobody else was talking about or nobody else was doing. And then what I was supposed to be doing, school and fitting in this way or that way, really wasn't that much fun. So I was basically really a D- student going through school, grammar school. Everybody liked me. I was a sports person and personable, but not smart according to the system. And then went to high school, and I'm still convinced, and I'm kind of saying this because I think there's lots of people in the same category. And so I go to high school, and I am convinced I failed my English senior test, which you have to pass to get out of high school. And then they gave it to a handful of us a second time, and I'm still pretty convinced I failed that test too. And so, but I was a nice guy, and I think they let me out of school. What I really am saying is I was never challenged. One of the things I would do is I would just write the answers to a math test, you know, long division in grammar school type of thing, and just write the answer. And the answer would be right, except I was constantly being accused of cheating. And looking back, it was really remarkable that nobody ever said, well, let's just put you in this room over here, you take the test, and let's see what you're doing. Never happened. So moving through that whole process, lots of additional things happened. People would get hurt, and they would come and say, can you fix me? And it was just the thing that happened. Nobody made any big deal about it. It was just how it was. And so I'd put my hands on people, and a broken arm would be fixed, or something would be hurting that would be taken care of. And then we'd just go on about our business and do our day, because everybody else thought that was kind of normal, but the kids anyway. So from that point, it got to a place where my parents separated. I grew up in New Jersey, and I went to work for Ford Motor Company, and it was really clear at that point, this isn't what I want to be doing the rest of my life. Putting axles on trucks wasn't really what I was wanting to be doing. And so at the end of about a year of supporting my mother, I stuck my thumb out with $33 from New Jersey and hitchhiked to California. Remarkably wonderful experience. Those, you can't do that today anymore, but you did then. And in the course of school, it was interesting in California going to school. And then at one point at San Jose State, when I was there, one professor basically challenged me. First time ever. And I think this is related to lots of people. The challenge wasn't a vicious challenge. The challenge was, hello, you can do this. And I think lots of people, in my experience with Mastering Alchemy and lots of other aspects of my life, have never really been said hello to. You're okay. You can do this. You can't fail at this. Let me help you. And so that one aspect, that one challenge, basically through the next 4 years of college, I carried a 4-point. And got to have lots of experiences. And then, like you said, at 26 was elected to the San Jose City Council. A really remarkable experience, but what was most remarkable about it, at that point, San Jose was the fastest growing city in the United States for the next 10 years. But what was mostly remarkable about it is my clairvoyance turned on to a much greater level. And so I began to start to see how things worked. And from that point, it just really never stopped. It just kept continuing. And as I look back on it, and now at an age where I can look back, there was no missteps all through the whole process. The whole process was the learning experience, was kind of the sandbox, if you would, in order to be able to do what I came here to do. But you don't know that when you're bumping around and making errors and being told you're not okay. But it's impossible to be not okay. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but it's impossible for you not to be okay. You can try really hard being not okay. How does that feel? But really, when you start to look at it, impossible to be not okay. And so from there, my clairvoyance got to the point, healing got to the point, energy management got to the point where we started teaching that to other people back in the 80s and 90s and then early 2000s. And my transmediumship, one of those other words, the ability to have conversations with, engage with, experience the energetics of some of these great beings, in my case, the archangelic realm, for the most part, the Lords of Light. There began to be a process where Metatron, as one of those beings that I constantly had communication with, said in the early 2000s, there is a path that has never been walked. And if that path was entertained, if you were willing to walk it, it's a path that will take you into your ascension. It's kind of a big word. It really means evolution, your own personal evolution. It will allow the opportunity for the earth to be raised back to its 12th dimensional, fully Christed state of consciousness that it once held. And it will allow those that walk this path to hold the door open for all of humanity and others to step into a 5th dimensional space of well-being, beauty, co-creation, respect, dignity, appreciation. Those are the vibrations of the 5th dimension. And so for the last 2003, 2005, this evolution of this journey has been unfolding. And so that's kind of the short version, minus all the business stuff and the politics that were all part of the path.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Jim, for that little intro. Now, when you talk about the alchemy of things, I know that from what I've read on your website and other teachings, Mastering Alchemy, from what you understand, is more internally and intellectually inside yourself, the alchemy, the alchemical process. Is that correct? Your focus is more on the alchemy of the body, of self, of oneness. Is that correct? Towards the
Yes.
multidimensional.
Yes. Yes, pretty much. See, but alchemy, the thing about alchemy, you know, first when people start playing and they hear that word, they think about physical, transferring lead to gold, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But when you start to really begin to look internally, you start to recognize that it has an enormous amount to do with two scientific concepts, if you would. Thoughts are electrical and emotions are magnetic. And so when you start to begin to look at yourself to transform yourself, that external reality that we play in, there are numbers of components that make up a transformation on a spiritual, conscious, mental, emotional, physical level. And when a person starts to really look inside, actually, let me approach it another way. When a person starts to notice how they experience themselves, and most of us, all of us, have had the experience of the 3rd dimension. And so if you start to look at what makes up the 3rd dimension, and you start to look at how you wish to experience yourself, you begin to have a whole very different reality, or very different perception of a reality than the one that you're mostly living in. So if I was to define the box, let's call it a box that we all live in, 3rd dimension, there are some very specific rules and structures and definitions to that space, as is a 4th dimensional box and a 5th dimensional box. But for the most part, nobody read the rule book when they came into the body. And nobody stopped, or most people don't stop to say, there's something different and I'm going to figure it out. Most spiritual people on a journey know there's something different, but don't know where to look for that difference. So we keep seeking. And to a great extent, we don't go internally. We read other people's books and other people's lectures, and we go and listen to what other people say, and that's cool and it sounds really good. And yeah, I think I believe that. And a lot of times they do, because it resonates right here in that internal guidance system in the heart. But choosing to translate it into an action for yourself is something where I have watched, tens of thousands of people who play at Mastering Alchemy begin to recognize, I didn't realize I could do that. And so that box, in a way, is that third dimensional box. It really is about a number of things. It's about linear time. See, for the most part, people think past, present, future, and then you die. That's it. That's how the game works. But in fact, time is an application. It is not a fixed game. And so when you can start to change how you hold your awareness and move into a present time space, a fifth dimensional space, present time, I'll explain that in a few minutes if you'd like, you start to find that instead of worrying about your past and hoping it doesn't happen again to you in your future, most people in linear time spend most of their time in the past and in the future. I didn't like what happened. I hope it doesn't happen to me again. Or they told me if I would do X, Y, Z here, I would be successful over here. Or even more specifically, the mom, dad, teacher, minister of life says to the little kid, this is what we believe. We do this, we don't do that. We hang out with these people, we don't hang out with those people. We go to these schools, we don't go to those schools. We eat this kind of food, we don't eat that kind of food. This is good, that is bad. This is right, that is wrong. You should do this, and you shouldn't do that. So when you start to say, who am I? And you've got all that should all over you, and you're basically trying to create something in the future, but you've got all these restrictions in your past about your future, you are off balance all the time, playing in that third dimensional box. That third dimensional box also has some conditions to it that make it very charged or very challenging, or let's call them structures. The third dimensional box is conditional. Period. End of discussion. In third dimension, everything is conditional. There is no unconditional love, unconditional anything in the third dimensional box. But you don't only live in that third dimensional box, you live in a third and a fourth dimensional box at the same time. I'll explain this. So in that third dimensional box, though, you have all this uncertainty about yourself. And in that third dimensional box, there is resistance. Everything is, when you start to play in it, you find yourself often in resistance, in fear, in words like jealousy, rage, hesitation. All of those kind of structures are what happens in that third dimensional box. But when you can basically make a couple of decisions, a couple of choices, become aware of yourself in a number of ways, and you can start to recognize that if I get into present time, meaning right now, and if I can be in the center of my head rather than spread between past and future, if I can get calm and grounded, I can begin to choose differently. But when you're in reaction, they said, I hope this doesn't happen. Oh my God. In those reactionary states, you don't have choice. You have reaction. And so as you begin to get into a different energetic field, starting with present time, you step into a fourth dimensional space. Fourth dimension is not physical. It is an energetic state. And in that fourth dimensional state, it has rules also. And three interesting pieces. Present time is the game of the fourth dimension. You can't be in the past and the future and be in that fourth dimensional state. Present time, right now, is what structures it. If you can be in present time, instead of being in third dimensional reaction, you can create choice. Now, choice is interesting because if I'm grounded, I'm in the center of my head, I can define where I start and stop. I'll explain that in a few minutes. And I can allow that to be what it is. I can choose to be right here. That doesn't mean I don't have my rent's due, my divorce is happening, my kid doesn't like me, I just got laid off my job. That's stuff. That's the environment you're playing in. But it's not who you are. In present time, if you have all that stuff, those circumstances, think about it. You're constantly in reaction, worry, fear, uncomfortableness, third dimension. But if you can get into present time and have all that same stuff, but recognize I can choose how to deal with this rather than be in fear and reaction, you start to create a whole different construct in the mental and the emotional body. And in that space, you begin to find that when I'm in present time, a lot of my stuff rearranges itself differently than when I'm in reaction and fear. Now, let me just stop and see if that's making any sense. Or not.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Jim. We actually have a couple questions that have poured in. And when you're talking about the reality that we're living in, we see that now in quantum physics and quantum mechanics, that this matrix, this living matrix of photons of light, responds electromagnetically to our vibrations, to our tones, and we are literally creating the reality we live in. When you deal with the alchemic process of it, we are alchemically combined to the elements of this planet as well, and talking about monatomic elements and things like that. Now, one of the questions that has come in from one of the listeners from Brooke is, hi, Jim, what is one thing that I can do today to increase the speed of manifestation that the life that I desire? What's a way I could do that? My thing is always your intention has to be pure, and your goals and the vibration has to be pure. You can't just say, I want $1 million, and the next day $1 million happens. You have to call it out to your angels. Your intent has to be pure, direct, very detailed, and that's what will happen. So how would you answer to that question? How can we help Brooke manifest those things that she wants in her life?
I can help you. But based on what you just said, which is very real, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Right there with that run out, which is perfect, nothing will happen. And the reason nothing happens is because if you understand the law of attraction, and law of attraction is ridiculously simple. It says, what you put your attention on, I, the universe that adores you, will provide for you. I'm not going to second guess you. I'm not going to figure out what you really meant, kind of. I'll give you what you put your attention on. But see, the universe doesn't understand English and French and German and Spanish. What the universe understands is your vibrational field. And so if you are walking around from in and from that third dimensional reality, and you don't like yourself, you're uncertain about yourself, you've been told all your life, been handed these gifts. Now, hear this really clearly. You have been handed gifts. You don't like the gifts, but you've been told by the mom, dad, teacher, minister, you're not okay, you're not attractive, you're not smart, you don't fit, nobody likes you, you're really never going to fit in, and you probably won't succeed. All your life, we have all been handed other people's opinions, their problems, their fears, their inadequacies in their own space. As kids, we get them laid on us all the time. But what happens is, in very pure mechanical terms, somebody says to you, you're not attractive, you're not worth anything, you're stupid. And they hand you this gift. And what we do is we accept it very reluctantly, and we do something very specifically. As soon as we get it, which it most of the time has nothing to do with us at all, it's somebody else's bad day, But we take it, and the first thing we do is we feel it. This doesn't feel good to me. And then the next thing we do is say, what's wrong with me? And we begin to take it into that mental process, and we start to spin it. What's wrong with me? Am I really that bad? Am I not attractive? They really don't like me. Did I embarrass myself? Are they ever going to like me? Blah, blah, blah. We go on and on and on. So all those great words, quantum physics, if you break it down to the really simple part related to law of attraction, how it mechanically works, let me give you an example. Have you ever seen one of those big junkyard cranes that pick up buses and trucks and cars? And it's a magnet, moves them around. But understanding magnetism and electricity, you're going to understand who you are, how you think, and why you feel the way you do. So in simple terms, that big crane has a block of steel on the end of a chain. And that block of steel, in a way, has a electrical wire wrapped around it. And so what happens is, as soon as you wrap one wrapping of the electrical wire around it and plug it in, you create a weak magnetic field. But if you take the wire and you wrap it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, you get a very potent magnet. That magnet is really strong. And so how that applies to the law of attraction, and the question that's being asked, is what happens is when somebody says you're not okay, and you accept the I'm not okay, and it doesn't feel good. So the first thing is, I heard you intellectually, thoughts are electrical. And then immediately it doesn't feel good. You're not nice, you're not attractive, you're not smart, I don't like you. Doesn't feel good. The next thing we do, the electrical wrapping. What did they mean by that? Am I that bad? Is this really, is my whole life going to be like this? Oh, I'm so embarrassed, and. Now think about it. You wrap this wire for a long time. I'm uncertain. I can't do this. I don't understand math. I'm not attractive. I don't know how to say hello to people. I'm not a good communicator. I am not, is the mantra. It's the electrical wire. It wraps around the emotion that never felt good in the first place, but the emotion, but the you're not okay was never yours. It was somebody else's. But nonetheless, now we get to, how do I get prosperity? How do I get all the beautiful things in life? Well, it's kind of hard to get beautiful things, prosperity, well-being, when I don't like myself and I'm not okay and I'm really not sure about who I am. And I don't have permission. And so the universe says very clearly, make no mistake, I adore you. You are a human creator, and you have free will to create. And I'll support whatever it is you choose. And what do you put your attention on? I want well-being, happy, beauty, wealth. But when the universe looks at you, what do they see? They see somebody that's like this. I'm not sure I'm at it. I can't handle it. I don't think I'm okay. And so the universe smiles kindly and says, well, Jim and Joe and Mary and Barbara, as you wake up in the morning and you say, this is going to be a great day, but that really great word, but I don't believe I'm okay. And the universe smiles and says, I will give you in third dimension a new configuration of what you are asking for so you can experience yourself more fully. And all the vibrations are around, I'm not okay. So how do you get out of that space? It's actually really pretty easy. The key, though, is understanding what is the space you're in, and what does this space feel like that you want to be in? So I can use words like certain and capable and commanding of your presence and graciousness, beauty, well-being, happy. All of those things I can say all day long. But for the most part, when I'm not okay and people have a conversation with me, they hear beauty and well-being, They want beauty and well-being, but they can't have beauty and well-being in the space where I'm not okay. But as I said at the beginning, it is impossible for you to not be okay. Impossible. It's impossible. You cannot be not okay. But you can put on a shirt that's too small or shoes that don't fit, in a manner of speaking, wearing this shirt that says, poor me, I'm not good, nobody likes me, I don't deserve, I can't have money. And then the flip side of that is money is bad and it's evil and all those rich people shouldn't have money. How many more things do you want to say that invalidates money, as an example, that you would really love to have so you could enjoy some of those great things that are available? So really the issue is, how do you get out of that space? First, understand the space. Now I'm saying this from watching thousands of people do kind of what I'm suggesting you do. And so here's what Mastering Alchemy does about that. Basically, people actually begin to consider, and I say, don't believe me, just consider that maybe you can't be not okay. Maybe you're okay. If you can begin to play with electromagnetics, meaning quantum physics, if you want to call it that, but the electromagnetic field is such that if you carry a word, if I said to you, do you know what certain, have you ever been certain? People will say back to me often, oh yeah, I know what certain is. I know what certain is, right up here, the rational mind. I know what certain is. Actually, the rational mind lives in the first chakra, not up here. But rational mind, I know what certain is. But then if I say, take a breath, close your eyes, and feel certain, a very different configuration comes into your presence. It's as if your shoulders go back and you stand up, and a little deeper breath, and there's a vibration, feeling, emotion in the body that comes with the word certain. If I said to you, be angry, that's an easy one. You got a lot of experience with that one. So you know what anger feels like. And so, but if you could kind of simply play a game, certain, kind of feel what certain feels like. In fact, you just might do that right now. Just take a breath and don't think the word. Just remember a time or feel certain. Now, what happens in that feeling is that internal guidance system, that aspect of the heart, that part of you, that higher dimensional part of you, keep that simple, that part of you that understands walking around in a body, actually, beauty and well-being and happy, certain. You've had those experiences once or twice or many times. But living those experiences is something that allows you to step out of that third dimension. And certainty only happens in present time. So if I say, how does it feel? You take a breath and you, right now, notice how it feels. Right now, you're not insecure, you're not unattractive, you're not impoverished. Right now, you're just being certain. What I've found is if you can, using certain as a word, there are many, but if you can be certain, and then if I said to you, take another breath and kind of find neutral, letting certain be there but not being experienced. And then would you feel capable? Now, somewhere in your life you've been capable. So would you feel capable? And that's a different feeling, close to certain, but feels different. And then if I said, kind of be capable and certain, you begin to do something in quantum physics that is required in physicalness. You have to have a geometry. Non-physicalness does not require geometries. It plays in them in another way, but doesn't require geometry. Physicalness requires a geometry. So I'm kind of created two legs of a triangle, certain and capable. And what happens if I said, now be happy? Just kind of notice happy. I'm not making this a lesson. I'm just kind of giving you a reference. And put happy, certain, and capable together, and it creates a triangle. And kind of in that triangle, fundamental structure of geometry, triangle, you start to find that you build a platform. If you can practice certain, capable, happy, it pulls you into a present time state. And in that present time state, you're in vibration, happy, certain, capable, which is not angry, resentful, I'm stupid, nobody likes me, and I'm never going to succeed. Which one feels better? Literally. So when you start to build these triangles of feelings, emotions, based on a thought, and you start to say, gee, this feels good. I kind of like this. You begin to create that electromagnetic field that actually is far more powerful than anger, rage, resentment, because it's aligned with this internal guidance system. You begin to know yourself. That's how you start to get
Jim, if I may, because we're on a very good topic here, another question which rolls right into this is, thoughts are electric. What is magnetism, magnetics that goes into what we're talking about?
Emotions.
Emotions.
Thoughts are electrical, emotions, feelings, sensations. Now that is really kind of one set of words, feelings, emotions, feelings, sensations, but they get scaled higher.
And another question, how can we better use dream time to transcend 3D limitations?
Dream time is a whole nother story.
Okay.
And I'll take a little bit, give you that.
Okay.
The reason that most people don't remember their dream space is a couple of things happen. Every night you go home, you literally go home. You leave this third, fourth dimension. You begin to play in other realms. The thing about other realms is they vibrate much higher than the physical body can internalize. The higher realms above the fifth do not operate in English, French, and Spanish. They do not operate in a realm where the higher mind becomes the processing unit. I'm sorry, the rational mind. And they operate in multiple dialects of the language of light that are very high, fast frequencies. But what happens is, when you go to sleep at night, it's very mechanical. The mental, emotional, spiritual, etheric body, part of you, etheric body, astral body, same thing for most people. What happens is the meridian acupuncture points are the docking points for that etheric body, call it astral body, but etheric be more appropriate, and the physical body. So when you go to sleep at night, you say, I'm ready to go to sleep. And those acupuncture magnets, vortexes, they loosen and they kind of unlock. And the body drops into physical rest. And you, the etheric, the spiritual, the emotional, mental, emotional body, begin to move into different aspects of consciousness. The astral plane is a fourth dimensional plane. The fourth dimension is a thought realm. It's not a physical realm. And in that fourth dimensional space, this one aspect we call astral is where all the thoughts ever thought, but not manifested in the physical, live. So there's huge thought strings, and all the thoughts forever make up the astral. They weren't physical events. They were thoughts you had, but you didn't act on them. When you go to sleep, if you are in a bad mood, angry, upset, and I just have to go to sleep, those electromagnetic thoughts of anger, resentment, upsetness, as you leave the body and you start to pass through the astral plane is half an inch off the body, and not even so much that. But as you pass through that state of consciousness, in the thoughts that you have, and particularly if they're uncomfortable thoughts, the electromagnetics are such that all the thoughts ever thought and your thought of irritation bind together, and that begins to be the next experience you step into, just a new thought. Most of the time you pass through that astral and come back from the going home every night in a comfortable way. But if you think about it, the only place you really see dreams or mostly experience dreams is when you wake up in the middle of the night to pee, I'm in a dream, or when you're coming back to the body. For the most part, you don't remember your dreams when you are going out of the body because you're going away. So the key to kind of figuring this out is, how do you enter into the astral space? How do you enter into the higher realm of that astral space to where you can begin to utilize it? It's a skill set. Some people have it coming into the body. Most people don't. Most people just simply leave the body and have some level of rest and then come back. Right now, the game is changing. There's the astral plane is the emotional body of the physical earth. And all that anger and war and resentment, incest, rape, domination, slavery, imposition one upon another that has been thought can't sustain itself in the earth's ascension.
And with that, Jim, that brings up another question from Matthew, who asks, where do thoughts come from?
Oh,
before you answer that, I also want to say, Brooke wanted to say, thank you, Jim. When I closed my eyes and left happy, certain, capable, I saw a series of gold thoughts. So thank you very much. So she wanted to say that.
You're welcome.
The question is, where do thoughts come from?
Oh, well, let me back into that. Simple though. Most people don't think, where does the thought you just thought go when you're done thinking the thought you just thought? So that's the astral plane. It's all stored in that space to a great extent. But the question of where does thought come from is really a question I'm having a lot of fun dealing with right now. So where do the words come from that I'm speaking, Joe, you're speaking right now, that create an intelligent conversation and consistent and interactive? Where does that come from? And basically, it's really kind of an unanswerable question in that third dimensional space, very specifically, past, future, I'm not okay. In a fourth dimensional space, it doesn't process there. In a fifth dimensional space, let me just define fifth dimensional as those beautiful words to start with. If you can begin to live that experience of those words, certain, capable, beauty, grace, appreciation, the thing you'll start to find is those are very expansive words. And so they begin to have texture and definition and very expansive. A word like ease is a very dynamic, energetic form, thought form to a great extent too. But it's in that space that I'm finding, particularly as you start to build and step into this light body. And that's a journey. That's not something that you go get a weekend class and you get a certificate that says I have a light body. It is very constructive, and it requires a lot of reconstruction of the physical, the mental, the emotional, the etheric, engaging with the soul, the oversoul, the Christed oversoul. It's a journey. It's not a little piece of work. But as you begin to step into that light body space, you start to find that an aspect of soul, higher self, is where these words come from. It's really when you can start to put your attention into those spaces, into the higher self, into the soul, engaged in that light body, that you start to have a whole different realm of awareness and reach in consciousness that becomes quite dynamic. But it's not something for a third dimensional person, because it's like having an old 286 computer that was invented in the 80s and trying to have it function at the level of some of these processing units today. It can't handle that kind of software, or hardware is inadequate for it.
So let me ask you this as a follow-up question for Matt. Then does it make sense to be careful of our mind emotional state prior to going to sleep, avoiding attached to these eggs, which you just mentioned, obviously, you want to set that intention, set that tone, meditate, ground yourself, and bring in that peaceful state, because as we know, the real reality is when our senses shut off at night and we go into the dream state.
Yeah. Well, it's not even bring in that peaceful state, because you are that peaceful state. You just have changed your attention to something over there, and that's where we stop looking. But something that makes tremendous sense is, instead of just falling into bed and going to sleep, no matter what kind of day you had, something you do is you leave yourself all over town. It's like leaving your dollar bills all over town and then having a big sale at Macy's or something, and you don't have energy anymore or dollar bills to go there. So one of the things that tool-wise or skill technique-wise is, if you would go sit on your bed before you go to sleep, take a couple of good breaths, like yourself, and then just ask the question, where did I leave myself? And you will immediately begin to have little reflections of things that occurred during the day. A simple tool is create a red rose right out in front of you in your imagination and have it collect you up. Now, there's lots of reasons why that tool works, but just for simplicity, give it the authority to collect you up. And then just look back at your day. Where did you leave yourself? Just do it right now. Where have you left yourself already in this day? Let the rose collect that all up. And then really just explode the rose as if it was a fireworks, and take a breath and draw it back into you. But there's a second piece. The question is, who got in my space today? And so actually create this rose first. Who got in my space? And so you'll think back, and somebody will have said something that had a little energy on it, or you would have had somebody looked at you funny, somebody insulted you, argued with you, didn't agree with you. Don't go into the substance, just notice where the energy was created. Let the rose collect up those people and their energy from your space. And take a couple of breaths and just kind of look through the day. You might even say, who else got in my space? Don't argue with it, make any sense of it. My husband did, my kid did, my wife did, my mother did. Doesn't matter. No bad people in this context. Just put them in a rose, let the rose collect them up, and then explode the rose. Let the energy go back to them in neutral, and it's out of your space. And play with that tool, even not when you just go to sleep, but off and on during the day. You get insulted in the day, you get yelled at your office or whatever it is. Kind of step back and take a breath and put that rose out here and let that rose collect up that energy, rather than just sitting around spinning in your head, why did they say that, why did they say that, or in your emotional field where it doesn't feel very good. Just take it out of your space.
And I just wanted to add to that, because that's so divine. When you talk about Emoto's work, with our thoughts transfer the molecules of water.
Absolutely.
Our bodies are 70% water. So when you talked earlier about looking in the mirror in the morning and I'm fat, I'm ugly, you're creating that. I know people in the spiritual community that are strong, and every morning their muscles, and they've been in the gym in years, because they are creating that mentally through the cellular memory. And that's what we're talking about. That's the most important thing, is keeping that positive energy and surrounding those people and those balls of white light and yourself to protect yourself and your energy field. Universal laws, you say something 3 times, that entity must leave that space, that whatever that entity is. So calling in that white light, just what you're saying, is a practice that many shamans and many people have done for thousands of years. And it needs to be practiced again today. So thank you for saying that.
Sure. What happens if there was green light or blue light? Or what happens if it was a different sound tone? There are so many aspects besides this concept of white light that allow you to rearrange yourself. I'll say heal yourself, but basically remove, change, restructure. See, these vibrations that you want to begin to become masterful of. See, that's what the alchemy process is what does the green color coding do for you? What happens if you take the red color coding? That's not just a swath of red paint. It's a coding system. you run that code through the first and second chakras, and you open those chakras up, all of a sudden there's a lot more space to move around in than be that rigid, restricted, fearful individual that we are in that third dimensional space. So there's a lot of additional opportunities. And let me just say one thing here to everybody. Recognize you've been reading books. You've been listening to other people. Joe just said for thousands of years, white energy has been used. Yeah, and it's really good stuff. But what else is it? And does it apply to you? Maybe it doesn't even apply to you. Maybe using a blue light in your space, which is all about calm and water. And what if you understood you could use an application to change the dynamics of how you engage with your world? But I want to be really clear here, with no invalidation to anything or anybody, but this is about you. This isn't about what you read in a book or what somebody said or a course you went to. It's about this internal guidance system. It's a space where it's no right or wrong. It's really is you start to just know it. And you all know this space. That feels correct for me. But just because somebody else says it, there's a kind of a mantra like, oh, he must be spiritual, so that feels correct. Start to figure out a way of discerning, is this information my information? Because we're in a tremendous transition right now. Look around externally. You're watching the world. I say it's simple. You can't take your baggage with you on this journey. And so you're seeing the external worlds, the Donald Trumps, the BritXs, the challenges in Austria and Russia. And really, basically, people are starting to wake up, and you can't take the baggage with you. And so this space of beginning to discern who you are. And I'll be really clear, your baggage is now coming up. All that stuff that I didn't want to look at, don't talk about that anymore. It's all coming up. So having tools and skills for yourself and understanding how to apply them is really what you're all about here. Not what somebody else's book says because that was nice. I'm not really, please, not invalidating anybody. But this transition is about you. You're the prime actor in your play. You have props and backdrops and back settings, and you've drawn in actors and actresses, but it's all about you. 100% about you. And well-being is who you are, and it's not hard to choose to step into that space if you just got quiet.
And I just want to say that is so right on, and what I think many people in the spiritual community is boiling down to when you say that, Jim, is self-empowerment. The biggest secret that I have understood from people like you and the thousands of guests I've interviewed over the years since I've been awakened is self-empowerment. If every one of the human beings on this planet knew that what we say and vibrate and manifest, as the ancients did, then the world would not be like this. We'd be able to co-create and manifest. That's how powerful we are. That's where religion stems from. Get the focus off yourself, and I'm powerless, and I'm fat, and I'm this. That self-empowerment is the key to what we all want to get across. I have another from Brooke. So I think I get it now. Mastering alchemy is mastering the new way to live in the now. I love the rose tool. Can you also tell me about the tools that you have created and how I can learn them? Thank you, Jim.
I can. So, Matt, kind of our business model in Mastering Alchemy is to give away as much substantive information as people can have. And so if you go to the Mastering Alchemy website, one of the things that's on the home page is something that says Essential Tools. Essential Tools, I think, is 7 or 8 tools explained in half-hour, 45-minute structures, class. Here's how you do this. And so those 7 or 8 tools, free. There's no charge. Go there, and if you can understand, I mean, they're really simple. The challenge is they're really simple. And people want to see complex things. No, simple. But if you can play with those 8 tools, 7, 8 tools, and internalize them, your life changes really dramatically. So Mastering Alchemy also does 1 to 2 free lectures every month for, I don't know, anywhere between 600 and 1,000 people are on those free lecture calls. They are not me just talking as some guy knowing something. It's really, do this, what happened? That's what Mastering Alchemy is all about. It's not about me or Roxanne or it's really, try this, what happens? The whole program, first understand, it's a journey. It's a good 3-year journey. It doesn't just happen overnight. But there's, in the free lectures, in the tools, essential tools, there is access to past free lectures. You've got an entire year's worth, 2 years worth of program structures or meditations, constructs, tools, teaching, abilities, skills, resetting your focus. It's all free.
I think also that there's a little delay, so sorry about that, Jim. I think also is reprogramming ourselves to what we've been taught, what we've been conditioned. The awakening is happening, and people are feeling these energies. They're understanding things now. The new children are being born, the crystals, the rainbows coming in, seeing through the veil. We know that the energies are raising. The DNA is changing. It's people like you bringing this in, but we must talk about it, understand it as best we can, so we can communicate the truth to each other, which is why I do it, my radio show, and you do what you do and bring information. We're here to be of service to the planet, and there's many of us now. But we also need people to step out of their shells right now, because the time of information of being ridiculed for believing in ETs or Merkaba fields or energy fields is far beyond dispute right now. Every indigenous tribe knew it. Everyone knew these teachings. This is not new information. This is old information. We're helping our brothers and star sisters and star brothers remember. The ancient alchemy came from ancient Egypt. They made the monatomics. They understood these principles. They understood the copper and the gold and palladium, and they understood the metaphysical properties. So people like yourself with the alchemy are bringing that back to self, so we can alchemically tune in ourselves to receive these new frequencies. Is that correct?
Mostly. Yeah, mostly that's correct. But there is, you see, we're not just replicating the past to do what they did in the past. We're creating a future. And so a lot of information from the past is very valid. There's a whole lot of other information in the past that is not valid right now. Not that it's not valid information, it just doesn't apply. Now, think about some of the software programs that were created from the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. You can't put that program into your iPhone. It doesn't have any value to you. If you're trying to create that new space, there is a lot of information, has had value, is really wonderful information. It's out of present time, and it doesn't apply to this moment. And so, again, the word becomes discerning. And in that discerning place, this is why I keep pointing to this internal guidance system in the heart. It's something that really, when you are being conscious and aware, it gives you a sense of, is this right for me or is this not right for me? There is no truth in the context where I'm kind of talking. There is no capital T truth, because it's and you all know this. I mean, how many times have you lived a truth and then all of a sudden stumbled upon a new truth? And can you go back to the old truth? No, doesn't work. So discern, begin to know yourself rather than taking on and treating a lot of these one-liners that lots of people have to say about different things. You are what this is all about. You're the center of the universe, literally, but just take it with a grain of salt. You are the one that is able to choose and redirect a number of things. Let me go out into the front of this a little bit. My experience is, and I spend a lot of time in that sleep state communicating and bringing that information back for me, And then my job is to kind of translate it into a set of choices for people to choose. That's all I do. But once you begin to play in that light body, you're going to find that the ability, you don't teach, you don't even heal. You just simply sit on a park bench in Paris, Amsterdam, New York, Resume Speed, Iowa, I don't care where, and just hold a consciousness. It's not an ego. It's not, look at me. It's just very quiet. And that quiet radiance impacts an enormous area. I'm watching it with the people that have stepped into that light body and what they're beginning to understand they have the capacity to do. You'll sit on that bench and people will just put down their guns. They will simply all of a sudden not understand what this war thing was and why did we ever even do that? And that's what that space is. See, it's not about, it's about you becoming that Christ being of consciousness that's very available now. Things have happened. That return of that Christ consciousness happened in 2011. One single drop of water placed on the top of the highest mountain on this earth began to create this rippling effect, creating that Christed golden star tetrahedron that's not only in your heart, every heart of every human being on this planet and the center of the earth. That's a consciousness structure. Have you looked at it? Have you put your attention in it? Have you sat in the heart and just allowed the vibrations that come with that? See, all that's available for you to experience, not just read about. And that's the space where I'm watching lots of spiritual people waking up, which is really wonderful, and basically experiencing what I'm going to call a horizontal spiritualism. They talk to one another and they just keep doing this and they have a new idea and then somebody else has it and then I put it on Facebook and then I send it out and then, oh, we talk about this really great idea. What did you do? What did you internalize? What did you experience? It's this ability to stay on your side. There's a point right at the edge of the aura that if you create a point and stay on your side, everything on the other side becomes Shakespeare's theater to entertain you, to educate you, to observe. Some things you choose to touch, many things you choose to allow to just pass by. You become calm, quiet, perceptive, able to choose and discern. But see, those are skill sets. Those aren't something you read about because when you read about it, it's like, wow, that's really cool. This is really cool. No, yes, cool. But it's about now and it's about you. It's not about reading a book. And so wherever all of that is available, but it's about getting quiet, sitting there with you and just putting your attention point somewhere. Remember I said law of attraction, what you put your attention on is what I, the universe who adores you, says will provide you. Have you ever thought of putting your attention quietly in the 8th chakra and sitting there and see what comes to you? Have you ever considered what happens when you begin to put your attention in the medulla oblongata, part of the brain? It's been turned off forever. Just put your attention there and then would you like to turn it back on? Have you ever noticed that there's a possibility to light a flame in the pineal gland that draws from the flame in the heart up into the pineal? Have you ever considered that the Creator sent you here? You are a human creator, made in the image of the Creator. Interesting thought. What does that thought mean? It's a very exciting time.
Spiritual beings living in a physical existence at the time, to experience separateness and to gather information, data, and communicate in synergy to bring back to source, to God. And when you say with your internal resonance, to me, that's your gut instinct. We all have that internal instinct, that gut, which I most of my life never listened to because I had to learn the hard way, but my gut always told me, and still does today. And sometimes I still don't listen to it. But that is what you're talking about turning into your heart, has more neurotransmitters in your brain. It functions most of your body. We're learning that now through science, quantum physics, quantum mechanics. We're connected, singularity, Nassim Harriman. Many exciting things are happening to show and teach and prove what you have been talking about for many years is true. Another question. As I understand, the upcoming winter solstice is the shift for the majority of the planet into the fourth dimension. With his Jim's communications with the angelics, can he comment on this? And before you answer that, I know you used to do a lot of monthly updates, and you were guided not to do that. So maybe you can answer that and dovetail into why you've stopped giving us, the world, these monthly updates, what you feel or what you've been told we may be experiencing coming up.
Well, I did something called planetary updates, and let me answer that, and then let me answer the question of how do I know what I know, and how you all know what you want to know. But the planetary updates have been something that, see, my job is to take a piece of information and translate it into a different vibrational field, and just make it available in the smoothest way possible for people to step in and choose, is this for me or is this isn't for me? And so for the last 3 years, actually for the last 4 years, since 2012, so understand 2012, well, let me step back. 2011, the Christ did energetic returned. 2012, we basically created a new computer operating system, if you would. You know, we upgraded the operating system, and from 2012 to 2014, it was really kind of rebooting and resetting itself. 2015, 16, it's taken off. And so in that consciousness that has been brought forth, this transition that we're experiencing. I mean, look around, not picking on Donald Trump for a political purpose, but you're watching a system be destroyed, really for wonderful reasons, because it doesn't work a lot of ways. Now, not picking on making the system bad or Donald Trump right, I'm not. There is transition going on, and this is the easiest, when status quo is in motion and breaking down, that's when new things happen. So this transition's unfolding, but at the same time, the new things that are happening on your physical level, it's all about relationships to money, to jobs, to what you do, how you move around, and how are you out of alignment with this transition. You're going to be moved into alignment. So the purpose of the planetary update was to say, let me tell you about physical type of things, not spiritual type of things. They're being driven by spiritual, but let me explain to you the geopolitical structures, the international banking system, the climate changes as we're beginning to see them. I would talk about the elementals and some of the things that are happening on the earth as it's getting prepared for this shifting transition. And so for all those years, I would explain, here's what's going on. Understand this is going on. This is how this is going to begin to affect you. And I would end with everyone saying, how do you choose? It's all about you. How do you choose? Well, somewhere along about December, November even, it started to get uncomfortable. I kept saying to myself and saying the same thing over and over. I did it in December. I did it in January. It's same thing. I'm not talking about anything new. And it all of a sudden I really had to sit back and what the reason was, it's here. It's not coming. It's no longer coming. It is here. All those events, world banks are in serious, serious transitional shift, and they're not going to succeed. World governments, major shifts, they're not going to succeed. Now, some people go, yay, that's great. No, it's not great. It's going to be really uncomfortable for lots of people in the world. But the point of the planetary update is, let me tell you what's coming. Can you get prepared? Whatever that means for you. How do you prepare yourself? Not in fear, not in running away, not in, oh my God, it's going to bite me in the butt. No, here's some information. How does it have value to you? But in February, it became clear there's no reason to keep talking about what's coming in that context. And so that's why the planetary update stopped. let me add one piece, Joe.
Sorry for the delay. Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
One piece to this. For
Yes.
this is meant to be informational for a lot of people. Everybody is what I'm going to call a transmedium. Transmediumship is your ability to get into the body when you're born and your ability to leave the body when you exit the body. But at the same time, that structure, that mechanical structure that allows that, it's all in the etheric body, it also allows you to space out and then come back. It also allows other people to get into your space. You ever had that experience? And so on a simple level, you know, mom says, oh, that's really nice the way you do it, but if you did it this way, it would be better. And you stop doing it your way and you do it her way. That's transmediumship. Somebody just got in your space. Really simple. Go out to the other extreme, multiple personality, schizophrenia, that whole level. It's all about you, however, and it's a skill set. Can you manage yourself? Now, we're all familiar with channels, and a lot of times, by definition, a channel is somebody who steps out of their body, another being comes in. You ever ask yourself where that other being came from? Is it a great being, and is he telling the truth? And if you look at a lot of the channeled information, it's not the great being that the being is telling you it is. So again, this word discernment comes into play. But for you personally, an individual, this is a great skill set to begin to have. Not stepping out of the body, but being able to stay in the body and have engagement with another being. There is a construct, I'm going to say it, but I'm not telling you how to do it or give you an instruction. Please understand. But remember I said geometry is a key piece to this. When you start to play in this internal guidance system, when you go into the sanctuary of the pink diamond, which is the love of the Christ, it's in the heart. When you go into these spaces and sit quietly, you begin to have access to these realms of consciousness because you are one with them. No separation. In that space, there is an ability to create a geometry, a tetrahedron, three-sided pyramid, fourth side on the bottom, where you can engage with. It's like Zoom sitting right here where we're having this conversation. It's you and whomever you wish it to be. When you begin to get clear about yourself, the ability to access a Metatron, a Michael, a Yeshua, a Melchizedek, in a level where they can communicate with you at the place you are, begins to be a tremendous education. In my reality, that space is expanded not just from a meditation space, it's here right now. If I have a question for Metatron, Metatron is there right now. It's in that merging with these great beings and in becoming one with them, not them, but it's as we're having this conversation and Joe asks a question and I respond and I ask a question, Joe responds and you all respond. We're in a specific space right here. That's very much that heart space. And it operates on a vibrational field in that fifth in higher dimensions, let's just call it simply, where you get quiet enough and this engagement, this kind of a conversation is with them. That space of transmediumship, channeling, if you want to call it that, is very much available to every one of you. But it takes a little bit of quietness, and it really takes a space of stepping out of that third dimensional noise. You see, no matter how, my observation is watching people come into Mastering Alchemy and kind of 3 years later kind of going out into that light body space. What happens is at the beginning it's all about turning your head from that third dimension. Even though all of you sitting there believe you are stepping out of that third dimension, the I'm not okay that you carry around hidden back because you don't want to look at it and nobody else wants to look at it is the magnet that keeps you there. If you can begin to build those platforms, and that's free information on Mastering Alchemy, begin to certain, capable, senior as a state of being, you create a space to where you step out of that third dimensional space. It's not a fifth dimensional space beginning to be, but it's not. It seems to be a stepping stone away from what you don't want towards what you do want. But it's in that space that you begin to create a quietness where things aren't as important. You drop away your reference points. I don't like him. Well, him's not even important anymore. And it's not disrespectful. You begin to engage with him, but there's no engagement. There's no, I don't like, and I'm afraid. It falls away. But in that space, that transmedium space, that channeling space, I would rather call it an enhanced communication space, all from the heart, very conscious, begins to be available to you. That's where you're going. That's where so much of these answers lie. And a lot of the information, again, in the books, wonderful in past time. There's more.
One of the most important things I think you keep reiterating to us, Jim, is it's coming from the heart space. Science knows that now. Metaphysics, quantum mechanics shows that we're creating this reality. One last question. We have about 10 minutes to let you wrap up. In this energy of now, I am awakening new talents, which we're all tweaked a little differently. Some read energies, some talk to angels, some can hear voices.
Sure.
How do I understand something that I can barely explain?
These abilities are abilities that each one of us have. They aren't magic. They aren't something you can work and become more skillful at your abilities, but you're born with these abilities. There are about 23 of these different abilities: clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience, transmediumship, etc. But as you begin to get quiet, and get quiet means you start to get into that heart in a quiet meditation, you start to, in a way, look up. And it's as if you all of a sudden begin to see a blue sky you've never seen before because you've been too busy looking down. In that space, in this transition, those skill sets are going to begin to be turned on. And for the most part, I don't know, I can't say that. Yeah, they just basically begin to turn on. But I will make one statement that I've watched. If you, as an individual, are wound up in the excitement, the drama, the show, the ability to talk to your friends about the cool information I just learned, I follow David Icke's, I'm really into the reptilians, the space wars are really something. If that's your focus, you're going to have a challenge moving into this light body space, because that energy is a game. It's a noisy distraction. It has nothing at all to do with you. But it's cool. People like it, it's kind of fun. But notice the stickiness of it if you play there. Notice if you can go to bed at night and get out of that space. Because for the most part, you can't. It's sticky. But if you're really about you and your spiritual abilities, it's all about being quiet in that heart space and finding that smile and that sense of beauty that's inside. And it magnetizes and expands outside.
And I just wanted to add with that, with the fourth dimension is a lot of where the mischievous conductivity happens with these other types of energies. Fifth and above, we don't deal with that. So for people that are out there, understand that dipping into the fourth, and I've been to the fourth and I've seen these types of entities. It is real and it's there. And that's why you have to keep your thoughts and everything pure. We only have a few minutes left, Jim. So what I'd like to do is, if you can, give out your website, any information of any upcoming workshops, anything like that.
Sure. So masteringalchemy.com is the website. As I've said a couple times, lots of free information, lots of free lectures on there, very useful, and it's all meant to be used by everybody. Mastering Alchemy is a journey, and the first kind of third of the journey is creating those platforms that allow you to step out of that third dimension and turn your head. Once you do that, you begin to get rid of a lot of those reference points, and you start to get very clear about you. And all of a sudden, you begin to do something very important. There was never meant to be two bodies, a mental body and emotional body. They're one. And when you start to bring that oneness back together, you begin to start to create relationships with turning on the brain. You begin to create relationships with understanding the upper 7 chakras, what they do, how to work with them, and how to use them. One of the fundamental things that is really important for everybody to learn is the chakra system is surprising it works at all. But there is a rearrangement of the chakra system that allows you to engage much more fully. And that's something that becomes available to you. And then you begin to build that light body. And it's a journey, but that's what Mastering Alchemy is all about.
And there's many different energy systems, as I've been learning. Your Kundalini, your Merkaba field, your third eye, you're activating your pineal gland, DNA activation. I mean, it goes on and on and on with the energy systems and the chakra systems and the 14 Tibetan the chakra system. So down the rabbit hole we all go, and discernment is the key ingredient I got from your talk today. And to me, that is the key ingredient. Self-empowerment. Use your gut instinct. Use that discernment. You will know what is truth to you and what is not. Street smarts, it's called. Common sense, if you will. And with that, I also just wanted to say one more thing. At the end of this, I'm going to send in the chat box right now to all participants the meeting IDs for the Earthshift conference. I just sent them. So everybody who's on this conference now can click that link, and you will be seeing us and many people live performing, talking about other things, light bodies, Merkaba activation. So with that, Jim, thank you so much. And thank you again for your service and for leading the way for us new starseeds and newcomers into the information. Because as we know, there's a lot of people in the industry that are not of the right intent and have stayed in one spot and not sharing information freely like you have. So I thank you and I honor you, and I appreciate your time today. And any other questions participants had, please email us. We'll get them over to Jim, and I'm sure we'll be with you very soon.
Great. Thank you, Joe.
Excellent.
Blessings.
Thank you. So, wait, before you go, it's Jonah. But
Jonah, it's my mistake. Sorry, I knew that.
Like Jonah and the whale. Everybody gets it wrong, but that's okay. Jonah both. But Jim, thank you again. And namaste. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, Jim. Many people are thanking you. I have a couple of hands raised, 6 hands raised, thumbs up. You did a phenomenal job. And we love you. Thank you. Our light and love to you. And keep spreading the message and holding that light for all of us. Thank you, Jim.
Blessings.
Blessings. Thank you.